If your creative push has helped you, you can help out this show by shopping on Amazon. Just head to yourcreativepush.com/Amazon. That will take you right to Amazon.com and you can do your shopping. It won't cost you anything extra, and a percentage of your purchases will go directly to helping to host your creative push. And especially with the holidays coming up, you can make a big difference just by buying the stuff that you were going to buy anyway. Again, the link is yourcreativepush.com/Amazon. And thank you so much for thinking about the show and for helping out. Your Creative Push, episode 315.
Go towards what excites you and pulls you into being creative.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Aimée Hoover. Aimée is a contemporary animal painter, and she was on Your Creative Push back in episode 174, where she killed it. And since she was on the show, she has continued to be a good friend to me and to the show. And so I was so excited to dive into what she's been up to since she was last on, and she's been up to a lot. She talks about not only her reflections from her Fly Mask series, which she talked about at length in her last appearance, but also saying yes to an opportunity that scared the heck out of her. She participated in this YouTube video, and despite her fear of collaboration and being on camera and putting herself into such an unknown scenario, she still did it, and she completely killed it. It was an amazing piece of art that she created with Blacklight King. And she also talks about what it was like to work with him and how it differed from her earlier experiences in collaboration. Aimée also dives into why she decided to make her fourth year of her 30 for 30 paintings project her last one, and her new dedication to move towards what she doesn't know. Aimée also talks about her art and why she doesn't want her work to be for everybody. She also talks about how she handles her email list, and finally, the support that she receives from her husband, Scott, especially during the very busy times. This was such a pleasure to reconnect with Aimée. Like I said, her first appearance on the show is one of my favorite episodes, and I know that you are going to be inspired once again by my conversation with Aimée Hoover. Enjoy. Aimée, welcome back to Your Creative Push.
Thank you, Youngman. It's great to be back.
Yay!
I was trying to think, has it been 2 years?
I think so, yeah. I think a little bit over. You were on episode 174.
Okay.
It's hard to judge by that though, because I've changed the pace of it. It used to be every day, then 3 times a week, and then once a week now. And I think it was just over 2 years because we talked, or you talked about your September challenge. You had just finished that, and
that's right. Yeah, I think it came out on Thanksgiving. Now that I think about it,
so, that is right. Because I said Happy Thanksgiving, and that's right.
That's right. I can't believe it's been 2 years. That's crazy.
It is crazy. Well, let's talk about that, because in the last time you were on, you talked about making switches and micro evolutions in your career and changing things up, and you had made that decision to stop doing pet portraiture, but you kind of did a 180 and you told your audience, okay, I'm done doing pet portraiture. And you kind of regretted not making small micro changes. So what are some of the changes that you've made since we last talked?
Well, I think some of the changes I've made is I actually have been taking on a lot fewer commissions. I've been working on, I want to say just stuff for myself. That always sounds weird to me because it's kind of all for myself. But, but yeah, I've been trying to, I actually think this is kind of cliche when people say it, but I'm about to say it. I've been trying to find my voice a little bit more. I think when I finished the pet portrait work and then I moved on to painting farm animals, and then finally got to that horse series, that I feel that was some of my strongest work to this day, which was, I think the last one I did was maybe when we talked. I think I was right in the middle of it.
The Fly Mask series?
Yeah, the Fly Mask series. And I think I wanted to keep changing things up that dramatically because the Fly Mask series, I can tell it was dramatic because I feel like it was a little polarizing for the people who would normally collect my work. I think people, they liked it, but it was it didn't sell. I'll just put it that way. That's kind of how I know like people like it. It's like, do I still have it in the studio? You know?
Yeah.
And just to be totally honest, I mean, ended up selling one of those pieces earlier this year. I sold one of the first big pieces from that series. And that meant more to me than a lot of other paintings selling, because that was the work that was the riskiest. And then someone finally kind of resonated with it after hearing crickets for a while. Like I think people appreciated, the strength of that work, but it wasn't something they wanted to hang in their homes. If you don't know what a fly mask is and you see a horse's face covered with cloth, you're like, what's going on there? So
what is happening to that horse?
Yeah. But it kind of finally a few pieces met with the right collectors. And yeah, so that's awesome. So that kind of gave me a little second wind to start trying to take a few more risks. But yeah, I mean, just to be totally honest, I think what happened is I did that series and then I haven't done like a big risky thing since then until the video that I did, the collaboration video. Ooh. That was like the riskiest thing I've ever done with my work for me personally. So,
right.
But yeah, I think I'm still making little evolutions. I'm thinking about it a lot. And I just, after finishing the September 30 paintings in 30 days, that will be my last one. And I'm kind of opting out of the September series now because I feel like, all right, I've done it for 4 years and I was looking at the work and I was really proud of this batch. And I'm like, this is a good one to go out on. I looked at the work when it was all done and it really worked as like a body of work. Like this looks like a series of work. And I think now I'm ready for the next series that looks different than that work. That fickleness is starting to kind of bubble again. Like the feeling that I got before the Fly Mask series, I feel like I'm in that space again, which is awesome.
Right. And I wanted to talk about both the Between Worlds, the video thing that you did, and also about your September 30 for 30 thing. Mm-hmm. Let's start actually with the video though. You reached out to me and you're like, I did this thing, check it out. And it was one of the coolest things I ever saw. So can you talk about the Between Worlds? How did you get involved with that? And then what was that experience like?
Yeah. That was just crazy. So I got, contacted by Jubilee Media, who's the company that does all of those videos where they bring together different people from different disciplines and have them collaborate on something and they film it. And so I did not know about the company. And then I got an email and I actually thought it was like a scam at first. I was like, why? There's no way that they would pick me for this. You know what I mean? They're going to pick an artist who, I don't know, is more well-known or has like 100,000 people following them or whatever. And so I kind of thought it was not legit. And then after the email, I got a call and a text and I'm like, oh, okay. So they really want to talk to me.
They're either really committed scamming me or it's for real.
Right. At any rate, they're disciplined. So I ended up talking to Amari, who was going to be directing this thing. And he said, so this is what we do. We take 2 artists from different disciplines and we throw them in a room and we have you guys create a piece of art and we film it. I heard the word collaboration and I was like, nope. And then I heard filming and I'm like, nope. And then, I just was like, nope. And I'm like, that's what I said internally. Mm-hmm. But the words that came out of my mouth were like, I'm open to it, and which is weird because I felt possessed at that point because like, if you know me at all, like I hate taking photos. I don't like being on camera. It's been a really long time since I've collaborated on art. And so they said, okay, well, it's good to know that you are open to the idea. We're talking to 5 other artists or 4 other artists and this week, and we'll let you know what happens. And I'm like, okay. So I get a call at 10 o'clock that night and they said, we've talked to everybody and we'd like you to be the other artist. We already have one picked and you're going to be the collaborating one. And I'm like, okay. I was secretly hoping they're like, yeah, we went with this other girl because she, whatever.
Then you're off the hook and it's not your fault.
Right. Right. And so Imari, the director, and I, when we did talk before he spoke with the other artists, we had a very honest conversation about how I felt about this. And I said, I'm like, listen, this scares the living daylights out of me. I'm just going to say that. So I might not be your best choice because I'm probably going to just like run from the camera. You know? And it's going to be really hard to paint whatever I'm painting. But anyhow, they said, we'd love you to do it. I said, okay. And even my husband was like, you said yes? Really? Okay. Yeah. And basically they just tell you to show up this day, this time, at this place. And they don't tell you anything. They say, you're going to meet another artist and you guys are going to create something in a day. We're going to film it. And that's all I knew. And I don't like saying I'm controlling, but if you take all of that away from me, I feel really like, super anxious. And I also thought, like, how am I gonna, I'm so used to creating work in the studio. Like, how am I gonna do what I do? I don't even know you know what I mean? Like, I'm just completely displaced. And so yeah. And so that's where the video starts, is basically me in a car with the director, and he's asking me what I think is going to happen. And then everything happens.
Right. Well, and we'll definitely put the video on the show notes page today for people to watch. It's definitely worth the watch, and it's what you guys create is beautiful. And you worked with this guy Blacklight King.
Blacklight. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was really good too. So what was it? Like you said, you're stripped down of like all of the things that you kind of rely on, and you're just entering this place blind, kind of just with your skills, so to speak. And what was it like then collaborating? As you said, you hadn't collaborated in a while. What was that whole process like?
I mean, at first it was kind of terrifying because every painter, artist approaches how they work differently. So for me, it wasn't just like, I'm pretty easy to get along with. I like to think that I can get along with pretty much anyone. So I'm not normally worried about like personalities clashing on this type of thing, but I also didn't know like what their style of work was or how they approach a painting, and it turns out that Blacklight, and this is one of the things I just loved about how he worked, is he's so creative and he has such a like robust imagination. As long as he just kind of has an idea, he'll sketch, and then he will go right to the wall or canvas with his spray paint and draw with spray paint. That's all there is. His process is like 1/10 of mine for preparing to do a painting. So I feel like he was, I think, a little more in his element with that, because it was, being filmed, and we only had a day to do an 8 by 11 foot mural.
Which is a huge challenge in itself.
Which is a huge challenge. And I was trying to remember, I'm like, gosh, when I was talking to Imari, did he actually ask me how long it takes me to paint something?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it turns out that like I'm a really quick painter. Like once I have an idea, it's like I just need to get it out. And so the painting happens pretty quickly, but the prep and the research and all that stuff, that takes a time for me. So yeah, we actually got along great after that initial kind of like, who is this? When he answered the door. And I don't want to give it away because it was pretty funny. Like our introduction, I was not expecting that.
Right.
And
you handled it good though.
Thanks. I do what I normally do when I'm nervous. I laugh right now. Right. But so yeah, but we just sat down, and we kind of both had this idea of, since my work was more, realistic, and his work was more, he uses the word metaphysical, like it's just kind of almost not of this world.
Right.
So I was going to do something that would ground the piece, and he was going to do something that was kind of more in his realm of painting, but like the same type of subject. And so we just kind of came up with this like yin yang thing, both like compositionally and just the idea of the whole thing. And I don't know why, like once we had that, it was just like on. Yeah. And so, I mean, it was like, I think the first day we just planned, and then we just got to work. I mean, there was a lot of square footage to cover. So, but one of the things about collaboration, so the only other time I had collaborated was in college and at Cal State Long Beach. And I think it was my first or second painting class there. And she announced that we were going to be collaborating on a piece. And I didn't even know what that was. I thought like, oh, like I'm going to pair up with this person. We're going to talk about this idea. And then we're going to both go to our own canvases and paint something. And it was not that. It was, okay, you are both going to do a self-portrait, but not of each other. Like you're going to do like, Aimée, yours is over here. Jim's, yours is over here. But you're going to paint on each other's canvases. So you're going to go back and forth. And so what would happen was, I think this was an exercise to show us who felt like we were struggling with our voice or our vision, or a style of painting, which we all were back then because it's college and you're learning. But what I discovered really quickly is that I would paint part of my cheek or whatever, go home, come back the next day, and my partner will have painted that out and painted something on top of it. Mm. And it was like, if you want to, it's like, oh, I just felt the bubblings of what I would say is artistic ego. I was like, no.
Right.
And so it was this, there was tension, right? Because we both had a different vision, but we were painting on the same canvas. And so that was my experience with collaboration. It was not great. Mm-hmm. And so I think with Blacklight King, I think we were both really open to each other's ideas as far as like kind of how this thing would start and what we wanted to do with it. At first, we were kind of working in our own little corners of the piece because our styles are very different. And we were trying to think like, how can we retain that? And then, but also have them connect, without painting over each other's stuff. And so in the beginning, we were like doing our own parts.
You stay on this side of the room and I'll stay on this side of the room.
We were kind of just both had our like Beat headphones on and just working. And then I think there was a trust that built over the day. And eventually then we kind of swapped. So I said, on your side right there, I'm like, I think if that had more of a contrast, it would look really good. And he's like, yeah, go do it. And so I painted on top of his, and he did the same thing with my area, like a little bit. So rather than trying to figure out how to almost like blend the two corners into like one cohesive piece, we actually started working on each other's stuff.
Right.
And not a whole lot, but enough to feel, I think for me, that the piece was ours instead of not like, oh, that's my part, that's his part. I mean, clearly you can tell whose is whose, but towards the end, I thought, okay, this is what Jubilee probably wanted. Like they wanted a true collaborative piece, and here it is, and you can see that it's collaborated. It's not like, oh, this is all my idea and I had him paint that for me.
Right. Yeah, it totally flows and works together as just one person's. Yeah. And Amare would probably think that you paint fast because you do those 30-day challenges, and you obviously can paint something in a day. So there's your proof of concept. And obviously you do work fairly fast, but did you learn anything from Blacklight about the whole planning phase of things and maybe like getting to the canvas a little bit faster?
Yeah, I did. In fact, one of the things I kind of felt embarrassed because he said, okay, so we decide we're going to do some water in the painting somewhere. And he's like, well, why don't you go do that? And I was like, I'm an animal painter. I'm like, I paint cows and foxes. Like, I can't tell you the last time I painted water. And then I realized like, this is one of like the big things I took from it, and something I've been thinking about for a while, is that he can do anything. Like he can do a person, he can do an animal, he can do a landscape. He does things completely out of his head. And I think I need reference material. I need to look at something and paint it, whether that's live or a photo, mostly, photos, because I don't have Scottish Highland cows available to me in Southern California to paint, And so I just was so impressed that he was not just creative and talented, but he just had more breadth than I did. And so that's something I learned as far as like how he approaches something. I just thought he was more well-rounded that way. And that's something that I really want to be as well. I just have never had, in recent years, I haven't had the pull to paint something other than animals that's strong enough to kind of pull me out. And so that's something I've been thinking of a lot. I haven't painted anything other than an animal yet, but I've been thinking about it a lot. And it's because of him and just watching him work, it's just really impressive.
Right. Well, I think that's something that many, probably all creative people deal with, is that you get so used to painting what you know, or for me, writing what I know. I struggle writing fiction. Like I struggle like creating fantasy worlds and things that I haven't actually seen with my own eyes or experienced. You know what I mean? It puts me in a very different mindset, and it's like almost like a scary thing. Like you're stepping up to a ledge and you kind of like have to jump off. And I think a lot of creative people, whatever they do, could definitely relate to that feeling of, all right, well, I haven't seen this, or I haven't done anything like this in years. Like, how do I kind of take that leap,
Yeah. What you just described, that free fall sensation, that's like, as soon as you step off the ledge before you get to the point where you don't feel like you're falling anymore, that is what that whole Jubilee experience felt like. It really did. Like there were moments where I felt like comfortable, probably because I was painting in the zone, and, time would pass and I would kind of forget where I was, which was, that's the thing. That's the place I always hope to be in when I'm creating work. So I'm actually surprised I did find a little time where I was in that space and not aware of the cameras. I think that's another reason why I said yes. It's just that I hadn't been that scared in a really long time. Like truly scared. Like I was scared. I mean, I barely slept. I think I called everyone I knew to kind of talk me off the cliff, and I really did want to cancel every day until we shot the thing. And so something made me do it, which is not in my nature to kind of walk towards that. Especially when it's not only, creatively, it was scary. It's just like, to be honest, we live in this world of very like curated photos and videos where everybody looks their best. And I was just like, oh man, like I'm going to have no control over like what I look like on camera. It's just going to suck.
Right.
And, and it's just vanity. So anyhow, I think being in that place of fear and complete discomfort, and then kind of coming out. And I wouldn't say I came out of it going, oh, that was, so much easier or whatever than I thought. It was really hard, but it was, I think, something I had to do to kind of just widen my perspective for a little bit, and also to meet Blacklight. I mean, he's a super cool guy. And there was, we had a break in the shooting, and, it was actually at downtown LA, and we climbed this ladder and went up on the roof and just sat there and like talked about art and kind of what he wanted to do and what I kind of wanted to do with my career. And it was really cool. And I think that's invaluable to actually have other artists to talk to. And I don't have a ton of artist friends. And I was like, oh, that's really weird. I guess I kind of knew that, but it was just good to have that shorthand. It's like when you're writing and you struggle, it's like if you talk to someone who's not a writer, they can empathize, they can know what the frustration is, but there's a particular frustration with, writing or painting or whatever, gardening,
right.
And so it was just nice to have that, a few of those moments where it's like, oh yeah, like someone else just totally gets it.
Yeah, that camaraderie is hard to find, and it's hard to find that specific person that can know just with a few words exactly what you're going through because they've been through it themselves. Like it's so important to have that. But bravo to you for doing that. I'm always a proponent of going towards those things that kind of make your stomach kind of that give you those nervous farts, as I like to call them. Like to just run towards those opportunities, even though you want to cancel every single day. It's hard, especially when you start, to kind of like penetrate that those nervous feelings to get it in the zone. But then once you're in it, like it feels so good. You can get in the zone, and then once it's done, you feel good about having put yourself through that. And then also, all these new opportunities come because of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think after I did that, I felt kind of courageous.
Yeah.
Like I felt like, maybe that's not a big step for another artist or another person, but for me, it really was. And, I think having gone through it, then I'm like, all right, like I kind of feel like a little bit like can do right now, and I think that can't help but help my work and just help me grow as a person. But yeah, I in general, I prefer to run towards smaller pivots than giant scary ones. But I think it had been so long, I was probably overdue for like a whopper of a thing,
Right. Well, good for you. Well, yeah. Let's move on to the 30 for 30 challenge, because last time, as I said, you had just finished your second one, and now you finished your fourth one.
Fourth one, yeah.
Fourth and final one. So it's like a 4-year college thing. So
yes.
you finish your senior year of.
Yes, I'm totally stealing that from people ask. So thank you.
No problem. And so, like, I know after the second one, you had this like, you're happy that you did it and you feel accomplished, but it's like, ugh, I'm still tired. So how did you do 2 more? And then what was the decision that this was going to be your last one?
I decided to do 2 more because, so when I do them, I do something a little different. I actually sell all the work at 50% off what my normal fee is. Mm-hmm. And so it actually, and I do that to kind of, for potential clients or collectors who have maybe kind of looked at my work for a few years, but haven't kind of pulled the trigger on a piece, and, maybe price is a barrier. And I wanted to be able to get more work into people's hands. And I knew that if I dropped the price, that would allow that to happen, and they can get a small piece. And that just, I don't know, made me feel good. Mm-hmm. So when I do that, I think it opens things up. Like there's just people who have access to it that wouldn't, because, everybody's got rent and mortgage and whatnot.
Sure.
So I just wanted to, create some more work at that price point. And I normally do really well. So, the work sells, and it kind of gives me some more freedom after the challenge to work on some stuff that I want to do that maybe I don't have to sell it because I did the 30-30, like I could be a little bit more, I guess, take some more risks, and have the pressure lifted off of like the work that comes after September.
Right.
But so let's see, last year, 2017, I cranked out the 30 paintings and it went really well. And then I had a pretty massive back episode from the work. Like, I think it was from being in my studio, standing on concrete for a very long time. And it was a pretty serious thing. And I was on my back for a while. And I just thought, like, I can't physically, I guess, do this again, And I didn't really want to go out like that, have some physical issue pop up that prevented me from doing the series. And so I decided, I've been in physical therapy like since then and getting stronger. And I thought, I'm going to do one more and be really good about taking care of my back and see how it goes. And so I wanted to do one last one and not have it end with me on the floor.
Right.
And so far so good. Where's the wood to knock on?
Yeah. Right.
So that's why I wanted to do another one. And then I just thought, all right, so I was able to do that work, and it's October now. And, kind of what we talked about at the beginning, which is like trying to make these small pivots and evolve work and all of that. I think what the September challenge started as a sheer challenge to see if I could do it. That's why I did it. I'm like, I don't know if I can paint this much. Let's try it, And I think what it had become is a way to get my work into the hands of people who might not have been able to afford it otherwise if it wasn't on sale. And then I think this last year, I really felt it was, I was kind of experimenting with like slightly different backgrounds, and it seemed like a study of animals. Like I felt like I was trying to do my strongest work possible. I only chose subjects that I really wanted to paint, and I wanted to do something a little different than I normally do. And I do feel like, of all the challenges, that I'm most proud of this batch of work. And, but I think because the time is so limited, there's only so much I can do in a day. And so things I've been kind of working on in the studio, they kind of can't fit into that painting a day format. So I think to move forward, this has to be my last 30/30 series, because I think I have to not go back a little bit, but I have to do that work in a different gear that I would do if I had time to paint a 5x5 foot canvas and I had weeks to do it,
Right.
And I think what this month taught me is that as much as I like the work that I did this year, I want to give my future pieces, larger pieces, because that's what happens, because this work is kind of small for me, which is why it's small, so I can get it done. But I think I'm naturally just more of a large format painter. And so now I want to paint some really big pieces, and I want to think more about why I'm painting it. I want there to be maybe not a story, but I want there to be something behind it more than like, all right, I have to paint this panda today.
Right.
I want to go a little deeper. And so I think that this September, the last one, was the perfect setup for me to kind of crank out work and sharpen my skills a little bit so that I can move on to like what's next.
Yes. And congratulations to you for doing it 4 years and
Thank you.
Ending up on the floor, as you said. But also, I think, at the end of our last episode, you mentioned this story about, buying your first piece of art and then being in the shoes of somebody buying your work, like just the pure joy that you get from buying something that you really want and, owning it and hanging it up and just having that kind of jubilation.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think it's really interesting to see and nice to see your perspective on, I'm doing this for people to be able to, that might not have been able to afford it, to be able to get it too and to have that experience. So I like that kind of growing that you did since we last talked.
Yeah, thank you. And when that happened, when we talked last time, when I bought that big piece of art, and it kind of changed everything for me. This year, there's a woman, and she had been following my work for, I don't know, I think almost a decade, maybe 10 or 12 years. And I'm trying to think of what painting she bought. I think it was the Kingfisher. It was one of the last few pieces, this bird. And I saw that the painting was purchased, and then I saw the name, and I was like, I know that name. and I emailed her to thank her, and I just love that she loved that piece enough to purchase it. And she told me, she's like, I've been following your work for 10 or 12 years. And said she was so excited to finally have a piece, and I just thought, gosh, like, what have I followed for 10 or 12 years and haven't bought something and then bought something? I would be so stoked,
Right.
And so that I kind of live for that stuff. I think someone had been following my work for like 16 years.
Oh my God.
and then they bought a piece, and I was like, I just was so stoked and honored, that anyone, my work's changed a lot over 15 years. So the fact that they stuck around and still followed it and then bought a piece, it was totally thrilling, I have to say.
Right. And yeah, like you said, your work changes, and as you make those micro changes or big changes, you'd be surprised how many people stick with you and stick with all the changes that you can make. And so you shouldn't use that as an excuse of like, oh, well, if I do something completely different, my fans aren't going to follow me, and I'm going to lose my audience. I'm going to lose my customers.
Yeah,
they will be loyal probably, and they'll stick with you. So you shouldn't use that as an excuse to not grow and expand and try new things and jump off that cliff, as we were talking about.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I realize that now. And I'm also realizing as we're talking, and I'm thinking of our conversation last time, it was like, I think I said something, I want to move towards what I don't know, and I realized, I kind of stopped doing that for a year. I'm so glad we're talking, because it's really a reminder to me that this is something I want to do, and I want to concentrate more on that. And I think for me, the micro evolution, it's not like I'm trying to evolve the work, but I have ideas. I have ideas that I want to explore that might feel weird, but that's probably why I like them, because they're different. And I want to like pursue those ideas in a painting. To me, that's kind of what the microevolutions mean. It's just to go where I'm pulled and give myself permission to do it, even though it's a little odd.
Right.
And I have people who tell me like, oh, I didn't like that one that much. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's, yeah. No, but I mean, it's, I get it. It's not for you. It's okay. Maybe hopefully the next one will be, but if not, it's like, I'm not offended really. Right. And I kind of don't want my work to be for everyone. I want it to be for a few people who really like it, because I feel like if it's for everyone, then it's maybe not, I don't know. It's almost like pleasing too many people.
Right.
I was thinking about this in the world of like, oh, how many followers do you have and all that stuff. And I'm like, I really stopped caring about all that stuff because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm so glad that people like choose to follow my work when they do. But like, I don't need 100,000 followers to sell my work, which is awesome. You just need really just a handful of collectors that can find you every so often. And for me, that's like kind of perfect. Plus I love the idea of, still selling directly. Like I really like talking to my clients and, here I made this, and then they resonate with it and there's an exchange and it's personal and it's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually had that written down to talk to you about like the fact that you don't need that, 1 million followers in order to sell work. Like I was on your website looking at the last 30 for 30 challenge, which only happened like a month and a half ago. And it's just like gone. Like one's still there. Like there's only a couple that like are even available. And not to say that you don't have that many followers, but compared to other artists, like you just have that loyal following that is willing to put out money. And, people always say that you just need those like 100 true followers, or I don't know what the number is, but it's just like the small amount of super fans. And like you said, you don't need to please everybody. You just need to really please those few people, and you're good to go, like as a career,
Yeah, totally. And I don't know if like Martha Beck talked about this when you guys chatted for the podcast, but that whole idea of like, all you need is your little tribe of people, and that will grow and change and shift a little bit. It kind of should if your work's evolving, I think. But anyhow, it's the artists whose work I love and follow. I mean, it's just ridiculous how many people follow their work. I mean, I totally get it because I'm one of them, but my followers are pretty piddly compared to those people that I admire and, love looking at their work. And hopefully, one day, maybe after following them for 10 years, I'll be able to buy a piece of their work.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I just think the whole social media thing, it's such a balancing act with ego as an artist. I just have to remind myself that, it's really not about who follows you per se. It's just who connects with the work. I think a lot of my collectors aren't even on social media. They just kind of found me early and I got on my little email list, and they're kind of kept, updated of new stuff in the studio. And that's fine too. It's like, I think we kind of forget like, oh, there's people who are actually not on social media,
Right. Well, can you talk about that email list then? Because I think that's, people, when Instagram and Facebook and all these other social media things are right in your face and everybody's telling you to, curate your content and make sure you post once a day or whatever, people forget about the old tried and true thing of marketing, of having an email list, getting people on it, and then maybe at a slower pace telling them what you're up to, just to kind of keep them on board. So how do you do your email list, and then how often do you send out information?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's part of it, right? I feel like the email list, it's like it is different because it just goes directly to them. They don't have to go and look for anything. It's just poof in their inbox, And
I think some people like that. like you said, some people aren't on social media every day, and maybe they don't have an account themselves, and they just want to be on the email list to be in the know,
Yeah, for sure. And I think have a ton of people on my list, but there's a few hundred, and it started a long time ago when I was doing the pet portrait stuff. And so I don't even think at that point I had one of those sign-up forms at all. They would just email me and say, "Oh, I like your work." I'm like, "Hey, you want to be on the email list?" And the email list at that point was just like a group of people in my contacts that I emailed one by one and made it look like an email list.
Just copy paste.
Copy paste for like 200 people. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
it
wow.
was really efficient. But anyhow, so it started just totally disorganized and, sporadic. And then I think there is something to being consistent with that stuff, like pick, once a month, once a week, whatever, like have it show up on a regular basis. Just choose whatever you want that regular basis to be. And, honestly, it's like I paint so much that most weeks I might have something new to share. But I think the email list is kind of invaluable because for me, I get to be a little more verbose. I feel like if someone likes my work, but they don't really know me, then they get on the email list. And over time, they start to get maybe a better idea of who I am as an artist and maybe my personality or whatever. If I write how I talk, which I try to, which is long-winded. And,
me too.
But yeah, I put myself in their shoes. Like I would love to have a conversation with the artist if like I love their work. I want to know all the stuff about the studio and what the idea was for that and like what they're like as a person. Like that's all really interesting to me. So I thought, okay, well, that's what I'll do. I'll try to just really be myself in these emails, and that way they get to know the art and me. And I just find that feels more personal, I guess, than talking to all of the world on social media in a way. And I think because it's an email, it's like I feel like you just can kind of do whatever you want, it's not like it's posted online. And so you can just, I don't know. I mean, I'm myself on social media too, but I think sometimes with social media, I think, all right, like no one wants to read a page of text on Instagram. So I need to kind of cut it down and edit it and try to be myself in a few sentences, And, but I think an email, I feel like I can tell a little bit more of a story. I think that's really good. And I think the people who want the email, they kind of want that. They want the behind the scenes stuff and hear a little bit more about, maybe why I painted that piece or what inspired it or like what my studio looks like right now and have that all come to them,
Right. It's like, and there's something to be said about knowing that they opted in as
absolutely.
It's like they're in your little safe comfort house and you can come in from the crowd and be like, hey guys, like you can kind of like just be yourself a little bit more. But for people out there, make an email list. It could be as easy as just copying and pasting and just so you can have your true tribe, like your comfort house. I don't know where that came from, but
I totally want people to be in my comfort house. I know exactly what you mean. But yeah, it feels maybe a little bit more cozy, than it's like I can be a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit more not honest. I don't want to say I'm not honest in social media, but like, more me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. You can be more open. Well, I wanted to ask you before we go about, I saw this Q&A you did. I think it was from a while ago. I don't think it was from the most recent, after the most recent 30 for 30. Maybe it was. But you talked, one of the questions was how often you showered. But that's not my question because I know that, like you said before, like cleaning the house, all that things kind of goes to the wayside in September.
Yes.
But you mentioned your husband and, he's the one that has to deal with you maybe not showering or whatever. But I wanted to ask you about like your relationship with him and your art, especially in months like September. What's it like in your household, and what is that? What does doing something like a 30 for 30 challenge do for your relationship?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that Scott is my husband. He just has been like all in 100% supportive of my art since we were dating.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's truly, I think, probably the biggest fan of my work. You know, he's also the most jaded because he sees what I do all the time. So it's like to get a reaction from him that the work is good is always like a bonus. But you know what I mean? Because it's like, I've seen it all. So, right. But yeah, he's super, super supportive of just my whole career. In fact, I would not be doing this without his help. And I was looking around the studio the other day and I was like looking at my workbench and I'm like, that was a birthday gift. And I was looking at my easel. I'm like, he bought that for me as a gift. Remember, like the stuff that I have that I actually use every day was like an anniversary gift or a birthday gift from him. A lot of it. You know, so it's like I see this physical evidence of his support every single day. And, you know, I was actually noticing that in September going, that's pretty darn cool.
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, September and that Q&A I did, that was very true. I mean, I just, you know, don't have time for showering. Like this one time, this is our joke in the house. It's like when I do September, it's just so much work and I'm gone so long during the day. I get home and I still have to like write the email that it's just, it doesn't stop when I get home. I'm just like, and I said one day, it was like Tuesday, I said, I showered. And he's like, is it Friday yet? He's like, is this Friday? Anyhow, yeah, he's been great. Like in past, I think he hates laundry more than I do. And neither of us like all the housework and all that stuff, but he absolutely pitches in when I'm kind of a ghost for September. Yeah, just last night he was like, hey, do you want me to like come over to the studio after work and help you put hardware on the back of the paintings? I mean, you know, like who does that?
What a guy.
So he is. I got a good one. He actually is really creative himself. He's a software engineer, software architect. And so he builds stuff too. He makes stuff. It's just, you can't touch it.
Right.
You know? So there's a part of him, I think, that really relates to like being the creative process and all that stuff. But he's just, I don't know what to tell you. He's just like super supportive. I almost feel guilty.
Don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
No, it's so good to have that, especially when you do want to take on a challenge like that, just to have everybody in the household knowing what's about to take place.
Yeah.
That smells might get different. And no, just like that the time might be limited and to not take it personally and to have that actual support is super helpful and super key. So Aimée, I don't know, do you have another final push in you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let's see. I guess you'll be the judge. But I was trying to remember what I said last time. And I think it was about, you know, just taking a few minutes a day to be creative. If that's what brings you joy, like it's totally worth it to do it. I think now I would say just go with your gut. Like I really think our heads get in the way of the work that we create or the excuses we give ourselves to not do the work. I just think, you know, you need to go towards what excites you and pulls you into being creative. Just follow your heart, but really follow your gut before your head gets in the way. You know, you want to paint something weird. You want to write that book, but you're kind of like, I don't know if people will like it or how they might react to it. You got to just do it because there's no point being a creative person unless that's what you do occasionally, you know, you know, yeah, we all need to make a living and stuff, but it's like, do the weird stuff. People want weird stuff. People out there waiting for your weird stuff. So that would be my push.
Absolutely. Yeah. Trust your gut. And also don't trust it when it's telling you, you know, don't do this opportunity or, you know, you're too scared to do this thing. Yeah. Don't trust it at that point. Trust the nervous feelings as like positive energy almost. And congrats to you for taking that opportunity head on. And like I said, it was just such a delight to kind of see you in your element. You didn't look scared. You kept saying you were scared, but it was really fun to watch you not just kind of attack that opportunity, but also create something amazing out of it. So congrats.
Thank you. Thanks for that, young woman.
Oh, of course. And thanks for coming on the show today. Again, it was a pleasure catching up with you, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
You too. Thanks so much.
Yep. And if you want to find Aimée, you can head to our website, aimeehoover.com. That's AIMEE Hoover.com. And on Instagram, she is Aimée Hoover Artist. And we'll have that all linked up at today's show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/315. Aimée, thanks again.
Thank you, Youngman.
Oh, my thanks to Aimée once again for coming on the show and giving us an update on what she's been up to, but also for diving into that opportunity that scared her, for doing that, but also for letting us in on her vulnerabilities, being brave enough to admit that she was scared to do the thing and how she got past that. And that leads me to what I wanted to briefly touch on from this episode. Prepare yourself. Prepare yourself mentally, prepare yourself emotionally for opportunities that scare the hell out of you. If you are getting to your creative passion, if you're putting the time, the effort into your creative life, and you're putting yourself out there in the world, guess what? The world is going to ask you for things. The world is going to give you chances, and some of those chances are going to scare you, especially if you were not expecting them, especially if they threaten to put you in an environment that you are not comfortable in. Ready yourself. Get yourself in a state where you are ready to say yes. Even if your body tenses up and you're so scared to do what comes after saying yes, if your brain is telling you and your heart is telling you that this thing will help you on your journey or open up new opportunities that are big question marks that you don't even know what they're going to be yet, get mentally ready to say yes now. Because you will probably never be ready for them. You'll always be nervous to do them, but you just have to build up the mental fortitude now to say yes and to tackle those opportunities when they come. On our next episode, we have Felix Semper. Felix is a painter and also a sculptor who makes stretchable paper sculptures. They really look like they're a solid object, and then he grabs the top of them and pulls them out like an accordion. It's a very mind-bending experience to see for the first time, and I will be sure to link up a video for you to check them out at today's show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/315. And if you want to head right to his website as well, you can head to felixsemper.com, or on Instagram he is Felix Semper. But I had a great conversation with him about not just his unique sculptures and how he created them, but how this whole thing started from a negative experience during the 2008 housing crisis. A really fun chat from an inspiring guy. So that is for you next week if you need the push again, but hopefully you were inspired today to go and get to your creative work. So go and get your creative work done. We will be here for you next week if you need that push again. Get yourself ready to say yes to those opportunities, because you never know when they are going to come, and you never know what's going to come out of them. I love you all so much. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.